Nowadays, when it comes to high efficiency furnaces, which are pretty typical, condensate becomes an item that has to be thought about. Where are you going to take your condensate? It has to go to an approved location. That could be like a floor drain, or it could get pumped out somewhere, right? It can get pumped to, a lot of times it gets pumped to like a laundry drain, you know, if it's nearby, or even if it's quite a ways away. In my particular house, I have a condensate pump, pumps it up through our chase system, and then drops down into the laundry, they call a standpipe, which is where your washer drains into. Those are the most common locations that I see, is the laundry drain and then just a floor drain or something that's in the area. I've also seen them pipe to the outside, but they have to have freeze protection because you don't want condensate, you know, the water buildup, to freeze. And then if the water then can't get out because it's frozen, it would back up into the unit and could damage it or shut it off. I've seen it dropped into just like a laundry sink. You know, if you just have a sink in your house, I've seen it dropped into that as well. It just needs to go to an approved location. I would suggest just talking to your mechanical inspector if you have some, you know, kind of non-normal place to put it and you just want to verify that it's okay. I would check with them first. But let's talk about condensate pumps and how they work and usually where they put them and how they pump out. If we blow this up and you look at this, so air conditioning units, if you have an air conditioning unit on your house, you're probably not new to condensate. Air conditioning units, the coils produce a lot of condensate. And so you can see right here, this pipe right here is the coil condensate. So if it's running, it's creating water, condensate, and it's flowing through this pipe and down into this drain that they have right here. Now, it must have been maybe just a little design malfunction or something, because the condensate for the furnace is down here. Well, it's lower than this drain. So they couldn't just pipe it to it because it has to have 1/8 of an inch per foot slope, right? It has to have a 1% slope, just enough so that the water drains down. It doesn't back drain, right? You want to make sure that it does have some flow to it. And so what they had to do is put a condensate pump on. So here would be a condensate pump. So the condensate flows down through the pipe, it goes into the pump. When this reservoir fills up enough on the float, it will pump it through this clear pipe. And you can see they wrapped it around and dropped it right down into here. Condensate pumps are pretty straightforward. If you don't have a floor drain and you've got condensate, you put in a new furnace, you know, let's say your furnace is a new 95+% furnace and your old one was an old B-vent 80%er, didn't have a lot for condensate, you didn't have an AC unit, you never really had to deal with it. Now you do. You got to figure out where to get it, where to get rid of that condensate. Most of the time, it's a pump. You put in a condensate pump, it's not the end of the world. You just have an outlet, plug it into, and then it ties into the furnace. You know, there's some wiring components that tie into it, and then when it drops in, the condensate fills up, pumps it out. My particular house drops into the pump, pumps it over to the laundry drain. Not a big deal. We don't even hardly know that it's there and that it's running. But let's look at a few more pictures here. And then I'll show you the code. So here would be another condensate pump. So you can see this right here is coming from the furnace, dropping the condensate down inside. Here's the plugs, it's all plugged in. And then here is the pump to pump it out. It's pumping out and it's going over to the laundry drain. Here's an example of condensate. So here's your coil, right? And here is the condensate drain for the coil and the condensate for the furnace itself. They kind of tie together and they go to a floor drain, so they don't need a pump. Here we have another pump right here. So we've got, you know, this one's right here is probably coming from the coil. This one's coming right up from the outside of the furnace. It's dropping down, goes into the pump. Pretty straightforward when it comes to condensate pumps. Here is the code requirement on it. Condensate from cooling coils and evaporators shall be conveyed from the drain pan outlet to an approved place of disposal. Such piping shall maintain a minimum horizontal slope in the direction of discharge not less than 1 1/8. So like I said, just make sure you have just a little bit of slope on your pipe when you're piping to wherever it is, a floor drain, if it's going to a sink, it's going to a pump, just make sure you got a little slope on it. Says condensate shall not discharge to a street, alley, or other area where it would cause a nuisance. See if you can read that there. Where it would cause a nuisance. So you just don't want to drop it into a place that it's just going to keep, it's always going to be a wet spot or be a mud spot outside. It'll be a problem. You don't want to do that. And then here we're talking about pumps. So condensate pumps located in uninhabitable spaces such as attics or crawl spaces shall be connected to the appliance or equipment served such that when the pump fails, so when the pump quits working, the appliance or equipment will prevent from operating. So it'll be set up in a situation where the pump quits working, the reservoir fills up, and it's not pumping. It'll shut off the furnace, shut off the cooling unit, the appliance, so that it doesn't, start leaking all kinds of condensate all over your house, because they can produce a lot of condensate. Pump shall be installed in accordance with the manufacturer's installation instructions. So again, you're just going to install the pump per your installation instructions. Just make sure when you are working on your new furnace system, you're finishing that basement, if you're doing the furnace, that you take into account where your condensate's going to go. Because if you got your walls opened up and you've got new plumbing for your laundry, now would be the time to run that clear pipe around from your laundry and drop it down wherever your mechanical system's going to go. That way you have it all there and you don't forget about it after the fact and you're like, I got to figure out how to get rid of this. So that's just a quick rundown on condensate pumps and condensate. Hopefully that helps.